Friends, Romans, countrymen, I come not to bury the MCU, but just to talk a little bit about it and maybe how we got here. I am, of course, Sparkz Witty, and it's time to do a Fake Nerds Watch about all of Secret Invasion, episodes 4, 5, and 6, but really all of Secret Invasion. And of course, I'm doing that with our friend Ryan Eliopoulos.
Hi, I'm mostly happy to be here.
And Ben Magnet.
I, too, am mostly happy to be here.
And of course, Brandon T. McClure.
I'm not happy to be here.
Real quick, we'll address the elephant in the room. We're pretty far, I imagine, away from the release of Secret Invasion by the time you're hearing this. We are recording it fresh off the week that the finale aired. You are getting it later because strikes were happening and we were in full support, and you know the whole story. So we're going to give you our fresh thoughts at the time and get into that. Brandon, do you happen to have all the episode notes?
I do.
If you could.
This is episode 4, 5, and 6, Beloved, Harvest, and Home, in that order. They're all directed by Ali Salem and written by Kyle Bradstreet and Brian Tucker.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. And we'll spotlight some things from the episodes, but, let's just get some impressions out of the way. Ben, you haven't even been with us since episode 1.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me how you feel about Marvel's Andor Secret Invasion?
I wish I was watching Andor, to be honest. Now that has substance. After a pretty bland start, because I did watch, I have seen all Secret Invasion. I was unfortunate I wasn't able to join you guys for episodes 2 and 3. I would say they were something of an improvement. And I will also do a blanket statement about episodes 4 and 5. They were also something of improvement. By episode 5, I was jonesing for more. I was like, you know what? There might be something here. I'm actually starting to get invested. I'm like the reveal of Fury's wife being a Skrull, I thought was pretty damn good, to be perfectly honest. I was like, okay, so now Fury has stakes. He's not just like this government dude who, like, yes, he cares about the world, but he has a personal attachment that could be great things. And then episode 6 falls flat on its face, and it's like we have some decent filling, but the bread of this sandwich is just rotten and moldy and bad.
Yeah.
The only... Can I go next?
Absolutely.
The only episode I like in this season is episode 2. Outside of that, I found them all to be dull. And there's good things in them, don't get me wrong. I think Secret Invasion is filled with good scenes between Nick Fury and whoever the hell he's talking to at the time. But as a whole, the only episode that for me comes together as a quote-unquote good episode is episode 2. And after that, it's just nothing of any substance since. And I'm going to be completely selfish. Because one of the things I really liked about the show was seeing Ben Mendelsohn and Sam Jackson together, and I thought they were very good together. And to be completely selfish, the show never recovered from killing Talos to me. Once Gravik kills Talos, I was checked out. I barely even watched the next 2 episodes. I was just done. There was just nothing here for me anymore.
Yeah. I pretty much echo exactly what Brandon's saying. I think episode 2 is the good episode. It is the one that made me think, oh, there's a show here. And then I kept waiting for episode 2 stuff to be revisited, and it doesn't really happen until the very end of the show. And even then, only kind of. And we'll get into that for sure. But I'm of the same opinion. And I agree about the Talos thing, is that kind of like when they killed him and I knew he was dead, I was like, I don't know, like, why are we here?
Yeah.
So, Ryan?
It really bums me out that, like, the last 5 minutes of the show is, like, the most I became interested in it. When the Secret Invasion is over and the hysteria is out in the world and there's, like, people just, like, getting shot in the streets. And I'm like, wow, this feels like, wow, like the world's crazy. And then that's just the end of the show. And we're probably never going to see any more of this. I consider myself a pretty positive person, even with some of the later MCU stuff. Like, I like Love and Thunder, and I like Quantumania. I don't love them, but I think those are watchable, fun enough movies. I legitimately think overall, I think this sucks. It's just really disappointing. Like if you are a fan of the MCU, I think there is a lot that really sucks about this show.
Mhm.
As a spy thriller, I think it's kind of generic.
I wouldn't even call it one.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. And the whole premise, when we talked about in episode 1, how this is pivoting from the comic, this isn't going to be a big brawl with superhero powers. What was this final episode? It is not just the exact opposite of what they said. It is everything that the finale of She-Hulk was making fun of.
Yeah.
And it's so hilarious that this came out after She-Hulk, and Kevin Feige is like just totally okay with it. And like, this product's just like substandard in so many ways.
Yeah, and I think I want to start there. So what I want to start with, sorry, there's a cat, so give me 1 second.
Meow, meow, meow. It's a Skrull.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a cat in the video. Look at that. Hey. Secret cat.
Okay, so where I want to start, I think, is I just want to give the context of acknowledging the challenges that I know were surrounding the show. We know this was supposed to be a lot earlier in the schedule. We know this. We know that this one in particular had a lot of COVID effect on it because of the international shooting locations and COVID restrictions at the time. Not only was it supposed to be early in the schedule in filming, it was supposed to be earlier in the schedule in release. All of these things we knew through its development cycle. I fully believe internally at this point, because it looks so bad as it's released back to back now, like the last Disney Plus show was She-Hulk and now this one, that She-Hulk's ending is supposed to be making fun of this particular ending. And I can imagine, like, it wouldn't make the show better, but I can imagine that would be like, all right, you guys at least know, like, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I think there's an amount where internally they knew this maybe didn't work. But because of how releases have gone, we are seeing a mix match of when they are pivoting and when they are still living with things they've had to face challenges over. And Secret Invasion is one of those things. That doesn't excuse a lot of choices that happen here, but I do think it's important to acknowledge there were a lot of trappings around this that kind of set it up for failure if they didn't get it just right. And they didn't get it just right, and thus it failed. And I do think that's important because the writers and actors, they didn't set out to make this bad show.
Yeah.
You know, the intention wasn't to end up this way. Nevertheless, we're here. So
I want to kind of go off what Ryan said about the show. And I can find something to like in almost every MCU project, movies or TV shows. There's always something that I've enjoyed. What I had considered was the worst prior to this was Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And even there, I was like, well, there's this stuff with Isaiah Bradley. And I think there's some good stuff with the core cast. There's I really like the Captain America suit. Like, I can list things that I like about that. And here, Sparkz, you said this to me yesterday, and I think I agree that this is the worst thing the MCU has ever made.
Yes.
Yeah, it's and I really want to state that, like, I feel strongly that way, and it's largely because, like, when I come away from it, I can't even do the bare minimum thing I went into the show wanting to do, which is say I saw Nick Fury go on an arc.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even do that. I can do that with Falcon and Winter Soldier. I can even do that with Iron Man 2, which is also in my bottom rung of the MCU.
Yeah.
But I can have fun with those to an extent, and I still get something to the core of those characters that matter. And this one, I'm just like, at worst, it's character assassination.
Yeah.
And at best, it's forgettable. And like, neither of those things are what I want from an MCU property, and none of those things have plagued the other ones, despite having one of the best casts you could.
I'd argue for the best cast
for one of these shows. They're horrendously misused. And it ultimately, for me, yeah, it is. It is the worst thing in the MCU.
And let's go ahead, Ben.
I will definitely agree with you guys. I don't know if it is the worst thing for me, but it is down there. I was not excited to watch this show. I will say that when I did binge episodes 3, 4, and 5, I was somewhat into it, but even because I watched the finale earlier today, right before I watched the finale, I was watching Star Wars Rebels. I was watching an arguably much better television show, and then because I saw some tweets on Twitter saying about how bad how they fumbled the finale. I'm like, well, I don't want to go into a bad time. I was like, well, I gotta watch it then. And the whole time, I can't even tell you what I was feeling when I was watching this. And even then, I think I was just like, kind of like those nights in Monty Python, just telling the show to get on with it.
Yeah.
And then when it ended, I was like, okay, wait, there's not even a post-credits thing. There's not even something to for me to look forward to. Like, what was the point of all of this?
This is the first MCU project where I've talked with my more casual nerd friends, the ones who don't really read comics and all that kind of stuff, but have enjoyed the MCU and have felt like the bumps, but still stuck with it. And like they've been like, oh, we haven't really started Secret Invasion yet, should we? And like how, not even should we? They don't ask that. They're just like, how's it going? And I'm like, I honestly recommend you don't watch it. Yeah. I think it actively hurts your enjoyment of the franchise because like I'm not deeply invested enough, so you're not even going to see past some of the flaws. You're just going to see a bad show.
And like we have, specifically Disney itself, they've been putting a lot of their hero characters through like the old man Luke process, right? And Nick Fury being, he was already kind of old because he's M. Jackson. Beyond that, he's considerably older. He's gone through all this trauma. To leave him in the place that you leave him, and to say some of the things that he says about race, about like trying to integrate like people, it just feels really gross and it feels really weird. And it doesn't feel like the Nick Fury who's out to save the world. It feels like if this is what you wanted to turn Nick Fury into like an actual bad failure and like someone who didn't try hard enough, like it feels like this like opposed to everything that Nick Fury's done before. And I'm like, this is just this feels icky. I think
it's been very telling. I don't know if you listened to our discussion on the previous Fake Nerds Watch about this, Ben, where we talked about episodes 2 and 3, but we mentioned a interview with Kingsley Ben-Adir, who plays Gravik, and people were trying to talk to him about like the civil rights parallels and what it means for a Skrull to be in the skin of a black man, that kind of thing. And he flat out was like, I really don't think that's part of the character because there frankly isn't the time in the show to get into that. He's really just a sociopath who only cares about himself and not the cause. And he said that at week 2, which is part of why I think Kingsley Ben-Adir has not been involved in any promotion for this show, because he was like, no, I don't think this was the thing I was told it was going to be when I signed on.
Yeah.
So Ryan said a few things there that I want to bounce off of, which is I think the ending is incredibly tone deafly terrible in a way that we haven't seen since Falcon Winter Soldier. It is far worse. I want to be clear about that. Because there is a massacre on Skrulls and people killing humans and Skrulls alike, and you've been dealing with this whole refugee crisis theme of how all the Skrulls want a home, and then you make them all the public enemy number one, and Fury just like, well, I tried.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what's worse for me, that you have made a show that basically says all refugees are evil, or just said Fury, and then Fury just gave up and went to the Marvels.
Well, but it didn't, right? It didn't say all refugees were evil.
I disagree, but I'm going to let you say what you say because I don't want to get into it.
Sure. It's not. It doesn't say all refugees are evil, but what I do think gets muddied about it is that it's the refugee thing isn't the thing that the show wants to do with the Skrulls. Like, they are factually refugees living on Earth, but that's not the thematic thing they decided to go for the show. Instead, they went for a civil rights struggle angle, and they missed completely in trying to do that. But that's what they decided to go for instead, which is like, you have I think it's the perfect encapsulation of like where the show is flawed, which is there's the scene at the beginning of episode 5 where Gaia and Fury meet up, and they're at that place where he first recruited the Skrulls, right? And she makes reference to a mural that's there that we never even get a good look at. And she says, I don't even remember what it means. And Fury's like, it's about the struggle. And that was the thing that Talos cared about, and all this. It's about the struggle, and like there's these ideas, these kernels of like how civil rights has formed who Fury is, and Black liberation, and things like that are like supposed to be like these little nuggets of connection between specifically our Black cast members and the Skrulls that they are either playing off of or playing as. And it just has nothing behind it, and it has no actual substance within the show. What it actively is it's like barely even dancing in the trappings of a civil rights analogy just to kind of get by. And I don't know what the ultimate intent was supposed to be of that. Like obviously there's the very surface level idea of like, they won't accept us in our own skin. Yes, we all get that idea, but like, there's nothing behind that. There's no intention and meaning to it.
I didn't even catch the parallels between the Skrulls and the civil rights movement. I was just seeing Gravik, just them trying to take over the planet. Essentially, it's like, hey, we've been living here amongst the humans for X amount of years. We want to go back home. And also the whole, I know that was really Gaia, as Nick was saying, a few years in, I realized there is no home for Skrulls. Bullshit. There's billions of planets out there in space. There's got to be one, but that's neither here nor there. I was the whole time, if there was like a message, and even when Gravik was like shouting at Fury doing this, I mean, I want to give props to the actor, because the actor who plays Gravik, who's, I know you said his name earlier, I just can't remember it to save my life.
Kingsley Ben-Adir.
Kingsley Ben-Adir, thank you. I thought he did put on a good performance. Like, you can feel his emotion, his raw, unbridled emotion about how angry he was at Fury for like, you said this one thing and you've never delivered, and
That's
I
such
am
a
making
big
action.
scene. And it's not even Nick Fury.
This
Yeah,
is the. I'm glad you brought that up, because that I truly think that's the best performance in the whole season.
It's such a great scene.
It's Kingsley Ben-Adir unloading that at Fury.
Every person you made me kill took a piece of my heart away. That's so good, and it's not even the person he's talking to.
I want Brandon to say what he was going to say before I carry on with the thought there.
I don't think the show does a good enough justification for really anything that we're talking about, but also when he kills his Skrull friend,
Yes.
For saying something, I do not understand, because the show frankly did not do the legwork to tell me that Gravik went from letting a woman who's not going to back him leave safely to killing his own people.
It's the same thing with the president going just full super hard racist mode at the very end. When I'm like, you kind of seem like just like a dude who didn't really have much character. And I'm just like, you go from 0 to 100 real quick because we only have 6 episodes. And these could have been an hour-long episodes. They're not. They're like 35, 30 minutes long. And I'm like, you didn't even use your real estate well. So I'm just like, this very much what you said, Brandon. This is like a nothing burger. Like, it doesn't. It feels like it has impact because you're killing these characters, but it doesn't really matter.
And so, like, the reason I like that Ben brought that up is because, to me, that is the, like, how like, we would have come out of this with me still saying, like, this is pretty much bottom rung, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but giving it just the tiniest bit of praise of, like, hey, but Fury had an arc where he had to, like, come to the face of his own demons moment, where Gravik said all that to him and Fury had to take that,
almost killed himself,
his failure of it and all that kind of stuff. Had that been the real Fury, that would have been like, cool, there's the arc, right? Fury had this whole thing happen. And when it's not him, it's like, oh, this whole show's nothing. Like, this whole show means nothing because Fury never had to confront that.
Yeah.
Fury never had to acknowledge openly his failures. It doesn't happen in this show.
Our 2 leads, the main hero and villain, they don't have a final confrontation in our final episode. We get faked out, which, like, I think it's a pretty decent like fake out reveal, but it removes any of the emotion that we were building in that scene to have a terrible fight. Again, a show that did not need this type of fight.
This is the thing that I talked about with Star Trek Picard season 3. If you're going to do a show like this, where you're going to do shapeshifters, and they can be anyone, and like you want the reveal of who they can be to be impactful, you got to think about it. You really have to think about what that reveal is going to do for the scene that you were writing. And if you're not thinking about it, it's never going to work. every single time it happens in this show, they don't think about it. I make the Star Trek Picard thing because analogy because in season 3 there's this whole thing about the changelings, and a lot of people were speculating one of the main cast is going to turn out to be a changeling, which is a shapeshifter alien. And I said, the way that the show is being written, there is no way that you can thoughtfully make a reveal work like that and have an emotional and have the emotional moments between the characters not be invalidated. And you just don't want to do that. And every single time this show did exactly that, invalidating its own emotional weight by doing these shitty reveals that they didn't think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very much like I fully believe that when they were performing it, I think that was supposed to be Fury and Gravik.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I don't know for who or why you film a scene of Fury entering, checking the radiation meter, and coughing on his way in when no one's watching him.
You don't know that.
If it's Gaia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because why would Gaia need to do that?
Yeah.
So I do think the intention was at some point along the line, this was going to be Fury, maybe even his swan song, and it changed. Who knows when it changed?
Well, wasn't this supposed to be out be out after the Marvels, not before?
I think in production, but not when they like actually started filming, like pre-production design.
So the reason why I think that I do kind of wonder if maybe the idea was that the Marvels was going to lead into this and not the other way around.
Yeah. And like it's something feels rotten in the state of Denmark kind of level where it's truly disturbing to have so many eyes have been on this project and looked at it and said, this is a quality product, and put it out, because it's so absent thought that I can't understand how people look at that scene between Gravik and not Fury. Having that emotional catharsis of what amount of story we've been given for this show about what the core thing is supposed to be about is ultimately just about these two people and how one hurt the other by their inaction or active actions, and how they come together about that. And like, that's your entire emotional weight. And you decided that not only should one of the characters not actually be who they're supposed to be, but we're never going to have them have that conversation, nor are we going to have our main character, Nick Fury, ever deal with the consequences of what that conversation was about. And to have the whole show have circulated around a character motivated by that, to the degree where episode 2 opens with a flashback about the moment they met, and that's not going to be resolved, I don't even know why you're making a show.
I don't even. The Ryan put it really well that it feels. I think the. How do I want to put this? The comparison to Andor is pretty interesting, because coming into this, we wanted this to be like the MCU's version of it, answer to Andor. That's kind of what we were looking at, and we were hoping it would be. And one of the things that I think shines some light on it is how well Andor is thought out, and how not thought out this show is entirely. This show so desperately wants to be about something, but it is not. It pretends to be. It keeps telling you, I'm about this, I'm pretending about this, so that you think you're watching something with substance, when in fact you are watching something without it.
It is half the episode amount, and it is almost half the length as well. So it simply doesn't have the time to try to do the things it's trying to do. I really wish
more than half.
Yeah, I just really wish it could have just try to stick with the spy stuff like that. You want to do Nick Fury, you want to do like underground shit, just do that and try to stick with that, because like some of that stuff works pretty well, but they're trying to spread themselves so thin.
Or just as we talked about the last time we touched base on this, like just be about Nick Fury responding to the conversation that's being thrown about him of like, you abandoned us. So many characters keep saying you abandoned us for XYZ amount of time and for these reasons, and Fury's not engaging with it, not countering it. Just have the story be about Fury. Just like the whole point of it is Fury just being like, I've made mistakes, and here's this moment,
Yeah.
and how I will change going forward as a person, as a husband, as a leader inside of this world. I
Yeah.
will be different because these are my failures that have put me in this position. The Skrulls have done all this that has made what I did possible, that made the Avengers possible.
Yeah.
I owe them, and I failed. And just have that be the arc, and like you bare minimum that, and I'm a little bit happy. Like I come out of this being like not the best thing, but hey, you know, Nick Fury had a whole story there, so like something was done with this character.
They even tell you that that's what the story should be about too. When he's talking to Olivia Colman, and he's just like, "Why do you think I came back? I came back because I failed Gravik. Because Gravik."
It's the only reason to have her and his wife in this show.
Yeah.
Is to have this analysis of the person he's been juxtaposed against the person who he's going to become.
Olivia Colman is probably my favorite thing of the show. And like realistically, you can cut her out and the show would be the same.
It's just because she's great.
It's just because she's great and she's just having a great time murdering people.
The scene where she does like her interrogation with that one Skrull, I thought was amazing. Just the way how she's just so nonchalantly happy about it. And even like her little like, oh, you put a little tracker on my favorite owl, and she puts an eye patch over it. It's like, I love this woman. This woman's great.
I really love Olivia Colman, and in many of the episodes, she is my favorite part. However, this show begins to lean too heavily on how much fun she's having, and it's actively taking away from the show, in my opinion. Because we're pivoting to her so frequently that I started to question why she was even there, and that's a big problem for me. Now, no shade on her performance, which is great. I just don't understand what purpose she served in this story at all.
I'm in full agreement with you that I don't know why we're turning to her as much as we are, because like I can't keep track of what was the point of what she was even doing, other than like she was finding Skrulls that the others weren't. Like that's ultimately all it feels like when she shoots Vincent Van Gogh in the leg and reveals that he's a Skrull. I'm like, yeah, all right. I mean, like I saw that actor earlier in the series, so I knew we were going to see him again at some point. But like, what did any of this mean? And honestly, there's far too many times in the show where I'm like, actively like, what are the characters after right now? Because I genuinely don't know. Like if it wasn't, frankly, the only thing that even felt a little bit like I at least knew what we were doing moment to moment was when Fury and Priscilla were together.
Yeah.
When it was him and his wife. And then outside of that, I'm like, I don't know what the intent of where characters are going or why or what they're doing is supposed to be.
And we haven't even brought up the MacGuffin, which gets brought up in the 5th episode, the Harvest, which is the dumbest shit, which was absolutely unnecessary to this plot about Skrulls trying to find happiness on an Earth that won't accept them.
I genuinely cannot believe that a MCU property tried to tell me that all of the like 40 different people's DNA was in a single vial.
Thanos.
And like you can separate those out and that wasn't compromised in any way or mixed up, that it's all just like pristinely kept in a single vial.
Here's the thing. The DNA is so good that it can replicate Drax's tattoos and Ebony Maw's rings, which is just and the Hulk's pants, because he has purple pants when he kicks. So it is almost like comical that this turns into just an action figure show at the end of the show.
I kind of understand the visual language of turning a body part turning into the thing when you use that power. I think the Super Skrull uses the same visual language in the comics, where you see when he uses the thing's strength, he sees the rock.
But like Drax has tattoos and body.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Is I'm saying I understand the decision. I understand why you decided to do it. But you have to think about it, which goes back to I just don't think there was any thought in this episode in this show, because when you have to hold on, let me calm down a bit. Getting a little too heated about the show. When I saw him use Ebony Maw's, Squidward's arm to do the thing, and I saw that, I was like, why did you do that? Why do you need to do that? Shouldn't you just, his power is mental, it's not an arm. Shouldn't you just have that ability in your head? Like, you did it for us to be like, hey, that's the Ebony Maw thing. And like, I don't understand. There's so much of the show that looking at the show as its text and putting it and seeing all the individual elements, normally when I watch show, I can understand the thinking of the writers and the actors and the directors, and I cannot here. I can't. I don't get it.
It's baffling.
Honestly, if you'd asked me when we started this at episode 1, like, do you think this will end in a big CGI fight? I would have been like, well, this is one show where I feel pretty confident that won't happen, because this is all supposed to be about like character stuff. Like, we might see some Skrull stuff, but like, this is about Fury.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to see some big dumb CGI fight with Fury.
But it's not just a big dumb CGI fight. It's potentially the dumbest big CGI fight in the entire franchise of the MCU, because I'll say like graphic I think looks pretty good. I think it's not Emilia Clarke's fault that she's really tiny and just looks really weird with like superhero arms grafted onto her. But like,
nor is it the visual effects artist's fault that they were handed this dumbass script.
Absolutely, but like there really was no thinking. Like Kevin Feige said, "Hey, free reign, do what you want, pick whatever powers you want," and nobody actually said no to any of the ideas. It's like even the powers they chose are incredibly silly and weird. Like, again, Ebony Maw, and then like Jotunheim Frost Giant for the blade. I'm like, yeah, y'all picked the weirdest shit.
That's what that was.
He's not a superhero with a frost giant. Like, what are we doing?
Okay.
Stupid.
Thank you for that. Because the second I saw that ice blade, I'm like, Iceman doesn't exist yet.
Yeah,
as far as I know.
Because here's the thing that really threw me is because they were like, oh yeah, we picked up the stuff at the Battle of Earth, and I was like, who was at the Battle of Earth that could make ice blades?
Yeah.
We had the frost giant clue in later,
or
earlier in the show. But you're right, and like the fact that the whole thing devolves into they're both just doing Carol's powers.
Oh my god.
Okay, I guess like it's cool that you could spend the visual effects for Carol Danvers to have been in the show, but we didn't actually get Carol Danvers
too expensive
in this show.
Yeah. And like there's no way. Thank God one of them died. Also, why did he die? If he has extremis and can regenerate, he just got blasted too hard.
To be fair, that's how the guy dies in Iron Man 3 too.
Okay, fair. Okay, fair. I guess the heart. Okay,
he gets blasted real hard, and then he gets a torpedo kicked in his face.
No, he doesn't get a torpedo kicked in his face. It's just the chest. The chest goes through him, and then he just collapses to the floor. It's on the Air Force One sequence.
Oh, that guy.
That guy.
Okay. I was thinking of Killian.
I was also thinking.
No, Killian took a lot more to kill.
No, yeah.
That's also extraness.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I think Ryan, you said it really well before we started recording, which is the Kevin Feige said you can use whatever you want. He didn't. I don't believe he said you can use everything you want. I think he should. I think this guy needed to whittle it down, and he just thought like, how cool would it be if we started doing like the Leo meme at every single power they use? And it's just so uninteresting and gray. And I understand I'm colorblind. I get it. I get that I'm colorblind, but if the visual language of these Skrulls isn't green enough for me, it's just not. The Skrulls need to be greener.
Right, Brooks. Like look at this behind us. Like there's not a lot of color happening. Like that's a lot of dark shades.
And it's weird too, right? Because like when we have Rava, who is Rhodey, in the shower scene, like that's a good green.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a good green on a Skrull.
Is it because they're in Chernobyl and they're doing like the Tijuana thing?
No, it's because they're in a bathroom and the lighting is better.
Yeah, there you go.
And that was actually makeup.
Yeah,
it was actually makeup. They were in the shower in Skrull makeup.
That's true.
Which was really impressive, and I want to highlight it because I'm like, that Skrull makeup looked real good. They found a Skrull makeup that wasn't going to wash off in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Well done.
That was good.
That wasn't CGI. That was all real. I was like, that looks really cool.
It's true. Big, beautiful blue eyes. Oh, that fun fact, the Rava, that's a great glove shitto from the Black Bolt miniseries. She was in a prison with Black Bolt. And they just threw away that character for no reason, which is cool.
Rhodey's
Skrull. Awesome. Don Cheadle's performance is a lot of fun. But like
Don Cheadle is good.
Sucks.
Don Cheadle is good. Yes,
Yeah.
Don Cheadle I will say is good. I just don't think that I just don't think it works. Him being.
I think Don Cheadle does a very good job of playing a female Skrull, pretending to be Rhodey, who kind of doesn't want to commit to the part.
Yeah,
and I think that that's very good.
Yeah,
which is all the more. Excuse me. Sorry. All the more reason why I would tell the director to go shove it up his ass to say that Rhodey was switched out after Civil War. And if Kevin Feige says the same, I'll say the same, because like not only does it ruin like previous moments in the MCU, but I'm like, you're insulting Don Cheadle's performance. If he knew he was a Skrull, he would have played those performances differently. He didn't, because he was Rhodey, you dumbass. He's a Skrull in this show, which is why he doesn't feel like Rhodey, and everybody pegged it from beat one because Don Cheadle's a good actor and knew to play it differently.
Yeah, and they're saying go and watch the previous movies and you can sort out when you think. And I was like, no,
and
that's just Rhodey.
And they have this moment where Martin Freeman turns to him and goes, Colonel Rhodes, how long have you been there? And
how long have you been there?
It's a problem. It's a problem to ask it and not answer that question. And I understand there's actively so many people who are like, man, this means Rhodey's been replaced in Civil War. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like, people who aren't paying attention are like, oh, his legs were fixed after Civil War, though. They were working in Infinity War. I'm like, he was wearing braces. What are we doing? And for me, it all comes down to two things, which is Don Cheadle's performance, and he bled red in Endgame. True. So he's not a Skrull. True. So I don't care what they say. They can retcon it in the future, and like they'll show me scenes that say like, yeah, Don Cheadle was a Skrull back then. And I'm like, you're a goddamn liar. And
you know what? But you know what?
Yeah.
It doesn't actually make sense, because within the context of the show, Gravik was still working for Fury directly after the blip.
Yes.
Which means it doesn't make sense that they would switch out Rhodey as a Skrull without Fury knowing.
He would only enact this plan once he knew about the harvest. That was established in the show. So yes, they don't. I'm so upset because
go ahead.
I'm so upset because it truly felt like Kevin Feige and other people at the top are literally not paying attention anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like they're not watching the thing they're making. And to a degree where I'm genuinely just like, I think you fully lost the idea of what you were going for with the MCU to begin with.
I really think, and this is not giving awful person Bob Iger any credit ever, but I do think he has a point about the Marvel TV shows and how like they have looks, they have diluted the brand of Marvel, because no matter how good we think some of them are, a majority of them people do not like, and that's not something they can say about the whole MCU.
No, and I think that's fair, and Bob's right. But it's Bob's fault.
Yeah,
because he set that schedule.
Yeah.
Chapek just saw it through.
Yeah.
And I'm sure problems came up through production because of Chapek. I'm sure we're living through decisions that came down from Chapek that have affected this era while he was running the CEO stuff. 1 second, Ben. But Iger set up, I want a lot of Marvel on Disney Plus. I want to sell it. I want to sell it with that and The Mandalorian, and that's how I'm going to sell Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So he pumped a bunch of titles out, and the rapidity did not work, and it was too fast. Ben?
After this, I definitely feel like Marvel has lost their way a little bit. Or maybe they've lost their way a lot of bit, because I will say I liked Thor: Love and Thunder. Ant-Man was fine.
Guardians.
But Guardians was the home run and the shot in the arm I needed.
The Marvels also looks really good. I think this one was just a really bad one.
I really hope.
I don't trust this. On Ben's point, I want to narrow you down a little bit, Ben, because I think you're dancing around the same thing that I am. I don't trust their shows anymore. I just don't.
Not even
I don't. Yeah. I trust their movies still. I find a lot of their movies to be still enjoyable, especially in the moment, and I'm really excited for the Marvels. But their shows, I'm not going to watch Echo until I know if it's good. I'm just not.
Honestly, I'm a little scared for Marvels. I'm going to go in with Marvels with cautious optimism. I'll even go in with Loki with cautious optimism because I love Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston so much. Every other thing that they're going to do, I am going to be very afraid of. And I'm probably going to be the same boat Brandon is. I'm not going to watch it until someone tells me it's really freaking good.
Yeah.
I don't even care if it's really freaking good. I just want it to be worthwhile. And the thing is, like, I'm like Ben. I still, like I said, I still trust their movies. I'm still very excited for the Marvels. I'm going in there with my excitement. And I specifically said Echo because I am excited for Loki still. I like that first season. This is a second season, and I have no reason to think this would let me down. But Echo being kind of what we're hearing about Echo behind the scenes, I'm probably not going to watch that day of. It's dropping all at one point. I'll wait for people to watch it and tell me if it's worth it. Yeah. That's where I'm at with these Marvel shows because I don't trust them anymore.
No, that's fair. And like I've liked She-Hulk and Miss Marvel, but like I really don't want another Falcon Winter Soldier or another Secret Invasion. Like these are actively like not good.
Well, and here's like the proven thing I think everybody can agree with, which is just they don't know how to do whatever format they tried to establish as like the main bulk of the MCU shows. This 6-episode format, they have truly and mistakenly gone into it almost every time as a long film, and it has failed.
Yep.
Because it is not, for one reason or another, when it has not been structured to be a show, something has fallen off because of that. And there are 3 projects that pretty much everybody agrees has worked on the Disney Plus show end, and those are WandaVision, Loki, and She-Hulk. And the reason is because they're all structured like shows. Loki might be 6 episodes, but it's a seasonal format. They knew there was a season 2, and they didn't have to rush telling their story in 6 episodes. WandaVision, obviously, structured like a television show. She-Hulk, obviously, more episodes, shorter runtime, structured like a show. Daredevil Born Again, they gave it a huge episode run because needed to be structured like a show, and they seem to know that from these lessons that they've been learning. So we'll have to see going forward, because again, we are still living in this is a very, very large ship with a whole lot of hands in the cookie jar. It takes time for it to pivot in reaction to what's not working. So it's going to take a minute before we get those projects that are in response to this and actually see them on the airwaves.
I want to say also that it isn't Secret Invasion specifically that has made me feel this way, this untrustworthiness. It's the fact that there have been so many. I like Miss Marvel. I like Moon Knight. I like things in every single show, but there are so many things I don't like in each show, including Miss Marvel. I think 2 episodes of Miss Marvel are just wasted. As much as I like that show and I like Iman Vellani, there are 2 episodes in that show where I'm just like, I'll skip them every time. Moon Knight, there's stuff in that show that doesn't work. There's so much in every single show that by the time it kind of got to Secret Invasion, it's all been accumulating. And I've always been kind of like accepting like, oh, there's stuff I don't like, but they're getting better. And then Secret Invasion was just kind of the thing that tipped it over for me, where I was just kind of like, you have all these problems and I can no longer ignore them. They're now just flagrantly just in my face, and I just can't be on this ride with you anymore.
That's why I like, again, in context sense, like She-Hulk would have traditionally come out after this. Like the way this was originally structured, She-Hulk was supposed to be the later show. And She-Hulk, I think we were all pretty hot on. That was a good show. It knew what it wanted to be from A to B to C. It told its story very well. The only episode I think is actually weak as an episode is the first one, and it's just because they have to get through origin stuff very quickly. There's one element of that show that I think isn't cooked enough, but otherwise pretty much nailed it. Really, really like it. So there's hope. There's quality in what they can put onto this network. It was literally the last Marvel show we watched. Plus the specials. All 3 of those were excellent Disney Plus content.
Oh, I'll watch a special. I will watch a special hands down. Like, tell me you're doing a special.
But that's what I mean. It's like, I don't think we're totally in the weeds lost on this Disney Plus content. If anything, I have a lot of hope for Daredevil right now, because I'm like, well, that's built to be a show. But I do think
I'm not saying. Go ahead.
I do think that the 6-hour thing has shown it doesn't work.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work. The only exception is Loki, and it's only because it gets more episodes in another season. It's failed all over the place, and hopefully we're going to see them pivot away from it.
Now, I'm not saying that like I'm giving up on the shows completely, because I'm very clear that you tell me it's good, I'll watch it, but you got to tell me first. I'm at a very similar place where I was with the DC films just after Batman v Superman, where I was like, you tell me it's good, I'll go see it. I'm not giving up on you 100%, but I'm not rushing anymore. I've been rushing before, and I've been on your side this whole time, but I'll wait. I'm waiting now. I'm waiting to see now.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
I only highlight that to accentuate that, like, I'm out here saying this is the worst. Yeah. Like, this is bottom of the barrel stuff. There's no part of me that believes they don't know this is a problem even before this show hit the air. I think they knew. And
it's too high profile to not release it too.
Yeah. And I think like a pivot will come. And there's so many factors that have been working against them, but I don't think like Disney Plus shows for Marvel are a lost concept, but they do need to be thoughtful. They need to have a reason to tell the story and to tell the story in the format that they're going to tell it in. If it's on TV on Disney Plus instead of in a theater, why is it like that, and how should it be structured? Because the answer is not a 6-hour long, and let's be honest, more like a 4-hour 20-minute movie.
420
in the case of Secret Invasion, which I'm flabbergasted how they came away with like 32-minute runtimes on the last 4 episodes. I don't understand. It makes no goddamn sense.
Yeah,
they needed more time, not less.
It's true.
If I may, I want to expand what I said earlier about Marvel losing their way. It's them. It's not just like them like losing their way, but it's also, I feel like, it's them being too big now. They're trying to constantly put out content, trying to constantly be in the zeitgeist and in public opinion or in public consciousness. Is like, yeah, we have to put something out. So in between these big movies, it's like, hey, let's put out a bunch of mediocre shows. And I will also agree with Brandon. There's a lot of stuff I really enjoyed about these shows. I liked Hawkeye. I liked Moon Knight. But I really can't tell you the entire story of those shows. But only I remember a few scenes. I remember some great moments with actors. I remember a few parts that were like really good. But other than that, it's just like, I mean, it's there. Like, I mean, even with Miss Marvel, I did enjoy the Miss Marvel show, but I also agreed there's a lot of stuff in Miss Marvel that I did not like. But I like the actor. I like the character who plays the person who plays Miss Marvel. I think she's fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing her in the Marvels. Everything else, I'm just like, it's there. I'm
one of the things that also bums me out about the show is like, I really don't feel that, like, much like, you know, the blip and the eternal, the celestial and the sea, like these big things, like the show ends with like Skrulls being hunted in the streets, and it is like it feels like chaos in the world. There are a million Skrulls. That's not a small amount of people. So, like, it feels like none of this is going to get addressed, especially in the Marvels, because that seems like a fun, wacky adventure. I don't think that's secretly going to be about the refugees on Earth, right? So, like, Nick Fury is exactly in the same place he was before, but like before this TV show even started. If we don't see his wife, I'm going to be angry, because there's even a line of like, "I'll help you now, but I'm going to leave eventually, so I won't be in the movie." And I'm like what? This show feels like it was like pointless, not just because like it doesn't tie to the MCU, just because like I don't feel like there's anything of value in the show.
To Ryan's point, I think the biggest misstep that we've seen through Phase 4 and Phase 5, now really being triggered by Secret Invasion, but looking back at it, in my opinion, it is that they steered too far away from the fear that fans didn't want to feel like they had to watch everything. And I think wanting to make the fans feel that way, they have thus made the universe feel like it doesn't matter that it's connected. Sure, it's connected, but it doesn't really matter anymore. And I think that was a mistake. I think that they should have strive to make everything feel like you don't want to miss this. And like, sure, people still could, but like the goal should have been that every single thing should have felt like it mattered to the universe, that you wouldn't want to miss it because the story was that good, because it was going to expand on things you care about in that universe, because none of the projects in Phase 4 or Phase 5 are somebody's first MCU project. That's what Phase 1 through 3 is for. They're just not. At worst, their first thing is Endgame. Honestly. Like, nobody is starting at Shang-Chi. They're not. Nobody is starting at Miss Marvel or She-Hulk or Moon Knight.
It's diminishing.
It's stupid to act like they are.
It's diminishing returns at this point now,
So
Endgame's was the biggest movie of all time.
They need to treat Phase 1 through 3 as the onboarding phase it is, and have allowed this universe to feel like it is growing. And I brought this up to Brandon when we were talking about this yesterday. I like, this isn't me saying like, you guys know I'm on my blip bag where I'm like, this should have mattered far more to the universe. What a storytelling opportunity it honestly was that they have squandered. And nothing has shown that more than Secret Invasion, where they constantly referenced it, but it meant nothing. Because I want to take you guys back to just after 2012, a couple years, and we started watching the Netflix Marvel shows. And you got Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage.
Oh, so good.
And guess what? It didn't matter if they said it in every single episode of the show, because they didn't have to. The Battle of New York
Yep.
hung over all of those characters.
Yep.
They were functionally living in a world that felt like it had been changed by an event that was beyond what they thought could happen.
Hell City's real estate was affected by the Battle of New York.
But even then, like, the characters are just like, it's a weird world.
Yeah.
There's just a vibe about the way the characters are talking because all of a sudden they live in a world where the Avengers now exist.
Yep.
And every MCU project, without necessarily having to name the blip or talk about how someone's been gone for 5 years, should have felt like everybody in the universe is living in a world where that happened. And it's crazy that that is not a trauma that is subtly in subtext hanging over every single project.
Yeah.
It should have been. It should have been a thing that's binding it, making it feel fleshed out and connected the same way the Battle of New York did for the Netflix shows. And it's nuts that we're at this point where they have been so afraid of people feeling like they have to watch every single thing that they have now made it where it frankly doesn't matter if you watch every single thing.
To Ben's point, like he said earlier, like they are so big now and they have so many projects, like it is impossible for them to try to keep when only they would release 2 movies a year and it was incredibly easy to keep up. Now there's 8 TV shows, 4 movies, like it's impossible, and the quality level drops when you have that many projects.
But none of it would matter that they were pumping out that much stuff if it was good. And if it at least felt like it built upon the universe people were already invested in and had proven they were already invested in.
Yeah.
Ben.
Movies aside, I don't want to watch the next Marvel thing. I am, because of Secret Invasion, because of us talking about it, and even earlier today, like I said, I was watching Star Wars Rebels. I wanted to keep going. I'm this close to finishing season 3. I'm like, I am invested in this old thing. And then I was like, nope, I gotta watch that finale of Secret Invasion. And then after I finished watching, I was like, I kind of wish I didn't.
At least it was short.
Yeah, at least it was short, thank God. But at the same time, I'm feeling burnt out.
Sure.
Years ago in 2012, I thought I was never going to be burnt out with Marvel. We had Avengers, we had Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. These television shows were amazing. And then when we got Disney Plus, like with more stuff, I was like, cool, yes, I'm ready. No, yeah, there was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I want to say something to that, Ben. Like, in fairness to this year of the MCU, it actually hasn't been that oppressive with content. We had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Then a couple months later, we had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Then maybe a month later, we had Secret Invasion. These kind of breaks have felt nice. This is kind of a little bit more of what I want the MCU to release their stuff like. But to Sparks' point, like, the quality control is still not there. If these things were good, I mean, Sparks is right. The last thing was She-Hulk, and the fact that Secret Invasion, fairness or no, Secret Invasion has ruined the goodwill that She-Hulk gave me. And I'll admit that maybe that's just because I'm really hot. I'm really kind of really negative on the show now, but that's the reality of what I'm living in currently when we're recording this. And regardless of how I feel later, when this comes out, I might feel different. But like the thing is, like, if Secret Invasion was like good, and we had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, then Guardians, and then this, and it was good, and I'd be like, there's no way I'd feel fatigued. I'd be like, hell yeah, let's get to the next one, which is Loki. The next one's Loki. And I'm excited. I am still excited for Loki, but there's a part of me where it's like, boy, I need a minute.
Well, you got a couple months of minutes.
I think Loki is out in October, so yeah.
You got 3 months. Yeah.
Minute.
There you go.
Honestly, within the week, I will probably forget everything about this show.
That's fine. Your life will be good.
That sucks. That sucks because, like, it's to Sparks' point. Like, these shows, and we talked about them when they were announced. Like, they should matter.
Yeah.
They should matter. It should feel like I need to see Secret Invasion. And I think the thing I was trying to get at is like the oppressive release schedule of the first 2 years of Phase 4, the first year of Phase 4 specifically, maybe, was really tough for people to keep up on, and the quality of the shows didn't help. So that I think, regardless of whether or not those shows if those shows were better, like really, really strong, I think it would still have been difficult. This schedule with kind of this event television, like, oh, you need to watch Secret Invasion because this is going to be a really good one that's going to lead into the Marvels, and you're going to really, it's going to like feel really nice. That's just not there, and it doesn't help that the show isn't good anyway. So you're just kind of like, I know that this isn't going to matter in the Marvels, so why did I watch it?
And like, we've given Kevin Feige so much credit for making the MCU and everything, but like, the man doesn't know how to make TV. Like that's just evident. Like regardless of if someone else has been pushing a lot of the projects or what have you, Kevin Feige, as far as we know, has final say.
Yeah,
and he's been wrong. And like not having more interconnectivity. And again, I get COVID. I get like the release schedules got all pushed around. Spider-Man was supposed to be after Doctor Strange, like all kinds of stuff was supposed to happen that just didn't. Yeah. And like, that sucks. And like we know that they were drafting plans post Endgame, and those plans centered around Chadwick Boseman, and then he passed away, and so all those plans got changed, and then COVID happened, and all those plans had to get reorganized and changed, and now the Jonathan Major stuff, and all the plans have to get reorganized and changed again potentially. Like, it's tough. I feel for them, but it doesn't change the fact that, like, as a fan engaging with the material, the universe doesn't feel like it's in communication with itself, and that's a problem. Like, it's not that I want more cameos amongst things. I don't need to see more people popping up or like Easter egg references or something. I just want to feel like the world I'm watching so much of this happen in feels coherent and like it's growing by each project, even as it just explores a new avenue of it. Like, I just want to feel like they all live in the same world, and I feel like they only do on a very surface level.
Which is why I am so excited for the Marvels, because that is 3 characters from 3 different projects joining forces. And that's just super awesome. And I like all those characters in that movie. Again, I think it looks really, really fun. So, like, I just, like, it bums me out that like one of the final lines is like, yeah, so the Kree and the Skrulls are at peace, and I'm going to go deal with that. And I'm like, just like that, huh? Just like that. Just a line and everything's cool. So I hope that stuff. I think that will play into some of the Marvels, because the villain's a Kree who looks like they don't like peace and stuff. So like, I just, what they did to Nick Fury really sucks. What they did to Talos and his wife Soren, and to who else dies? Maria Hill. That's the thing. Like, this show is just devastating, and it wants to feel impactful by just killing characters.
Right.
And characters that everyone likes. And like, we know, like, Maria Hill could have like been so much more involved in the show, and you still could have killed her at the end and have it be important.
Fury never even talks about her again.
No.
After
he meets her mom.
And he never talks about Talos again after he talks with Gaia one time. And to have a series where, like, one of the things we were touting about what was so strong about the opening of it was that forehead touch between Jackson and Mendelsohn in the first episode, and to have him die right in front of Fury, and then
saving the president, who then just goes on a racist rampage and forget that ever happened.
I was actually, one of the things I was mad about. I was like, but didn't a Skrull save your life from other Skrulls? And then, of course the whole one-term president joke was like, oh yeah, because Harrison Ford is going to be president next. Yeah,
that whole final,
because Ross is going to be president next term.
Why couldn't we have just really revealed that Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Sharon Carter are Skrulls? Why couldn't those have just been our Skrull reveals?
Yeah,
that would have worked for me.
Because that would have made me feel good about, like, oh, thank God. Those characters suck.
This is a different show. This would have been a different show, but like, I've been thinking. I was starting to think about in Thor: The Dark World when they break Loki out of prison, and Chris Evans is in there for like 2 minutes. Yeah. And it's a fun little 2-minute cameo where Chris Evans is pretending to be Loki. And it's really fun, and it's really cool. And like, in a different show, maybe a better show, I can't really say, I kind of would have liked that to have happened in this, like, Skrulls turning into Avengers and things like that.
Absolutely. And like, I just hate, because I know it's like how much money these people cost and scheduling things, that it's just like, you don't need to put them and make them important. It could be a 1-minute scene where a Skrull turns into, I'm not gonna say like Iron Man or like Steve, but like it turns into Paul Rudd, and like Paul Rudd is talking to our main character, and like Nick Fury is like, Ant-Man's here? This is really weird. Why am I talking to Ant-Man? And like, he's the Skrull. I'm like, that's a 1-minute scene, but Paul Rudd probably cost $20 million or something, right? So like, I don't know.
there's so many different ways it feels like this show could have told its story better or told a different story better, but I don't think at the absolute guarantee of unfortunately making Brandon and Ben more upset, I have to talk about the one that's been haunting me, which I already talked to you about, which is I listened to a podcast called Decoding TV.
Yep.
And on it, a guest wrote in and said, boy, what if Secret Invasion had started where it ended?
Yeah.
And was about human beings finding out that Skrulls existed because one screw up, and that a Skrull died and turned back into a Skrull, and it caused this shape-shifting panic amongst human beings. Who's a Skrull, who's not? And there is no invasion. It's all fabricated by human beings who are afraid, and Fury has to come down and protect the Skrulls and figure it out. And I got so mad
so good
and haunted by that concept. Yeah.
That's why, again,
for listeners, it's on both of their faces right now.
That's why
they're like, holy shit. And it's the same thing that happened to me, friends, where I'm like, how is this not what the story is?
The end of this show, like, it is like, it's very exciting, and it's very scary, and like the panic feel, it again is the most tense I felt in the whole show, and it's at the end of the show where we'll probably see no resolution to any of it.
And I can't believe how violent that is. We didn't really touch on it.
Shooter Gavin,
the senator who just gets shot.
Yeah.
And is bleeding out,
human
being shot in the street. And I'm like, this is really heavy shit that they are just kind of like tossing out without
that's
a care.
Andor shit, baby. That's
end.
Being real. And then they're like, no way, Jose.
Yeah, I am now extremely upset that that's not the show we have, because that would have been really freaking great. And also, Ben, real quick, that would have made Fury's stakes in this 10 times better, because his wife is a goddamn Skrull.
Yeah.
And that would have just made so much better sense.
Right.
I'm processing while I'm also trying to put out a thought. I really hate the ending. Like, I'm like blood red mad at the ending. And now that you've told me about this kind of better idea, I'm even more mad. But like the fact that, again, it goes back to like the show is trying to tell you it's about something when it's actually not about anything. So when you have all these this kind of like shapeshifter panic happening in the streets, and with over this monologue by Ritson and Sam Jackson, or I don't remember who was talking, and then you just have Sam Jackson say, "Well, I tried. Bye." Like, I am so furious at that ending, because I know I heard it when it was coming out, and I'm so upset because like the whole thing is Nick Fury being so feeling so deeply responsible for what the Skrulls are doing, what Gravik is doing, and he's just going to leave now that they're all dying and they're all being hunted and they're all being persecuted. And he's just like, okay, bye.
And humans are dying too.
Yeah.
And he's just like, this will sort itself out.
It's disgusting. Like, truly, for Nick Fury, like the character who he is, like he's all of this has been his journey for decades. He's letting this
honestly tossing out this kind of vigilante violence at the very end of the show is ignorant and irresponsible.
Yeah.
100%.
Because again, we're never like, this is another thing that's added to the list of things.
But son of a bitch, if that's what the whole show was about, and that's where it started, that's the show I wanted to watch.
Absolutely.
That's the show where like you want to have Fury have a conversation about how humans are being terrible, and that he has to protect Skrulls and humans from themselves.
And he has to stop Gravik because he is the guy who's like, I am going to be the one bad version of us, so I'm going to ruin things for everyone because I deserve this planet.
And they started it.
Yeah. And they started it, exactly. And like, you do see his point. Like, this version is a considerably worse version of Killmonger. Like, it is a completely botched Killmonger in every sense of the word. And I'm just like, man, and again, Kingsley Ben-Adir, I think, is giving, again, that final scene between him and Fury is really good.
He's acting. Capital A acting.
And Sam Jackson's doing it good too. He's doing the coughing, and I'm like, man, are we about to lose Nick Fury? It's not even Nick Fury. It's not even Nick Fury. Yeah. Wild stuff, y'all.
It really bugs me that so the Super Skrull, as I understand it, I don't have a lot of history with the Super Skrull. I've maybe read one or two comics that they've shown up in. It's a villain who is difficult to beat, but it can be beaten by the Avengers.
The
I do
Fantastic
not.
Four can beat them for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the Fantastic Four can beat them. I don't believe for a second that if the Avengers were involved in this fight, that they would be able to beat this Super Skrull.
They have dozens of powers. Hulk, Thanos, and the mind powers, ice power. They have everything. Yeah, they have Carol powers. They just Gaia is the strongest person on the planet.
Yeah,
There's no way that character is going to do anything of meaning or value. Like,
let's just turn her into a
second they
Mazo.
show up, say that again.
Turn her into a Mazo.
That's not bad.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not. But like, man, what trash! What like?
Or Amelia Clark.
It's so bizarre that it's a show that like has this cast and wants to play with an idea of this thoughtful character story, and like at the end of the show they pull the trigger on the event that would have made sense for, even if it's not the very first thing that happens on the show, that would have made sense for centering all of that kind of character story around, and they just don't do it. It's nuts.
Because again, we see early on, we like in Chernobyl or whatever, like there are kids playing soccer, Skrull kids. Like, you are very directly showing us that like this immigrant, this analogy happening, right? And then they're just like, nah, Gravik's just a bad guy. I don't think about those kids.
That's what I'm saying.
Don't show me this.
That's what I'm saying. I respect Sparks' opinion on this, and I'm sure I'm the one who's wrong here. But I'm not going to let go of the fact that I do believe that it's incredibly ignorant. The ending is incredibly ignorant because I firmly see it as we are saying the show's final message is all immigrants are bad. And I get that I'm alone in that, and that's fine, and maybe I'm wrong, but like it's disgusting to me. It actively makes me sick that they've to make it a more universal kind of point. It's actively disgusting to me that they have decided to tackle the immigrant story twice and have failed both times.
I do agree to some extent, but not as far as you, Brandon. But it bums me out that this is happening with Nick Fury, who like the stuff that happened to him in the Marvels, and his whole thing is about security and protecting people, and it's just like, why do you turn him into like this old man who just gives up and it's like, I tried, whatever. Like, that is not fun or cool.
I feel like I need to clarify because I sound like I'm anti-immigrant. Which is
I didn't mean to say. I did not mean to do that.
But like my point is that I don't think that's the message, because I don't think you come away from it saying all Skrulls are bad, thus all immigrants are bad. But I agree with you that they're playing with the xenophobia fear of immigrants in an irresponsible way.
Yeah.
I don't think the message is that all immigrants are bad, but the message inside the show is that human beings are taking that stance, and as they are analogous, that is you're supposed to recognize that as the bad thing, but they are playing with something that is a heated and upsetting realistic topic in a irresponsible way in the last 3 minutes of a series that landed with a thud.
Yeah.
And without a lot of thought. And in that sense, I agree. I just don't think that's the message, but I do think the irresponsibility is there.
Nick Fury gives up right at the end of the show, and I wish I would be totally okay. I mean, it's not good, but I'd be more okay if like I have a way to solve this, but I can't do it on Earth. So I'm going to go, I have an idea, but it can't be here. And then even if you never follow up on it, at least you have an idea. You were just ending the show with Nick Fury like giving up and running away. That's a terrible place to leave a character, especially we're about to go to a movie that looks like a hi-fi fun adventure, which I want. Yeah, true.
I hate the last shot of the show being they walk into the space pod and then they hug and they like, you can see like their profiles are looking at the camera and they say the silhouettes just hug. The door closes and I'm like, this is gross and I hate this.
I also thought it was. I do like that he kisses her in scroll form. I do like that, but it is an interesting way to end your spy thriller. Is them like
their conversation is good, and I like their scene in episode 4 really. Episode 4, 5.
Yes,
I don't remember. 4. When they're talking about before they pull the guns, I think that's a really good scene, and I think their scene at the end is very good too. It's just the like, oh, they're living happily ever after sitcom moment where I'm like, this is gross.
I agree.
This is where I really agree. Like, I think the Nick and Priscilla stuff is probably the closest to something strong inside of the show, because frankly, I think they play off each other very well, and I think they have some of the best written dialogue between the two.
Yeah.
I really love the scene between both of them, where, to what you're talking about at the beginning of episode 4, she describes taking over the life of the original human and making the promise to not hurt Nick, especially the skewed perspective that the camera makes of her to be smaller and further away, visually conveying Nick Fury's distrust of her. Like, there's a lot of smart things that are being done with some of the substance of the show. It's there. They're just not doing it all the time, and I don't get it. They also have the line right after they both fire the bullets and they both shoot at the wall and not each other. Not sure if this means we should get divorced or we should renew our vows. And I'm like, that's a sick as hell scene.
Yeah.
That's a great scene.
I think the action scene with Gaia and Priscilla is actually really good. It turns into John Wick for 5 minutes, and I'm like, this is a great action scene. I don't know why.
Which is,
they have like triple shotgun belts everywhere. What is awesome?
And Gaia hits her with that like really stinging like, but he can't love you in your own skin, and she just like, don't presume.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. You don't come into my home and presume you understand what it takes to build a life of love. Don't do that shit.
That is
and like, that's why Priscilla, I think, is really strong in this show. Again, like, also that scene we were referencing in episode 4, Fury is about to walk out the door and she's like, would you love me if I had been myself fully in my own skin? And he's like, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end of episode 6, like, this is the one nice thing that happens in the show, like a full circle on something, is him kissing her in her own skin.
It's why the show sucks so bad, because every episode has a kernel of really great writing, like really good writing, and it is always only when it is like personal character stuff happening between two characters. Anytime the main plot is happening in the MCU part of the movie, the show, it's a long movie, let's say. And that was my fear. Episode 1, I was like, oh, I can feel this, and it felt like a long bad movie. And I'm like, oh, if this just could have been small the entire time, keep it personal. You can have Super Skrulls, but have it, just don't do what you did at the end. Like, that's fine.
They're also doing what is functionally like a really bad stance on really bad. I have to stress, like, what we talked about, like the analogy of the civil rights struggle stuff, like appropriating Talos to Martin Luther King and Gravik to Malcolm X, as far as idealism versus activism.
Yes.
In the context that they set it up, makes Talos just look stupid. And like, because he has that, all his takes are just naive of like, if we go to the president, he'll give us a home. And it's like, this just makes him seem unrealistic and dumb. Like, this is not a good parallel.
It's been 30
of what you're
years.
trying to do.
I love that Talos has so much faith, but like, it has been 30 years.
But it has to be expressed.
It has, absolutely.
He has to have a more functionally, like, you can't have literally every character and every audience member looking at it and going, you dumb. You dumb.
Might.
Ay.
Yeah.
I don't get why I don't get why the show exists, and that's a really terrible place to be at for any show, because I'm watching this and I just kept wondering, like, why are we here? Why what is this about? Why are we here? It doesn't answer these questions.
So this show is obviously performing terribly, and it's being rated terribly. Like, so nobody likes it, nobody's watching it. So like, it's dead in the water. This definitely feels like a show that, like, if this were a little bit better, I would want another season of, because again, the way it ends, if there were another season of that, that is the Andor-esque thing I could see happening. But again, with these writers and directors, I don't feel they can deliver that quality. But like, now we're never going to get anything about this. Like, whatever's in the Marvels is all we're going to get, if there's anything at all. And I'm just like, man, you left the world again in a really awful spot, and now we're just gonna move on to Echo, where none of this is gonna be important. Not that it should, but like, it just feels like really,
but
like,
kinda like any show that genuinely, like they say on the timeline, takes place post Secret Invasion, like, it should matter.
Yeah,
that's one of those things. Like, it should matter technically, if we're looking at it on like the paper, like what happens. Yeah, like, if characters going forward should be like, yo, we gotta talk about that Skrull thing.
Yeah,
like
Brody.
That would be pervasive. We won't, but it should be.
Yeah, man, this is so interesting for Armor Wars too, because like, there's no way in hell that secret invasion stuff was going to tie into Armor Wars.
Well, it has to now, because Brody was a Skrull.
Yeah, but like, or is it just going to be like, I don't know, man.
Also, like, I guess the catch-all everything that the president ever needs, so no other staff ever needs to be around him guy.
Oh yeah,
Is, I guess, Rhodey's position functionally.
He's like a
I don't think we stressed
secretary.
enough that we're on foreign soil and the president goes to a hospital and like two dudes and Rhodey are the guys looking after him.
Sparkz.
Yes.
Can I tell you that I firmly believe this show forgot it takes place in Russia for a lot of its runtime?
I believe
because
that's true.
I'm watching this and they go to the hospital and they're driving around and they're like Fury's grave, Fury's whole life. Fury's life is not in America. It is in Russia. His wife is in Russia. His primary grave is in Russia. His
grave we see him go to, I just want to clarify, is in Finland.
Okay, that's fair.
He takes the plane from the guy from Black Widow.
Oh yeah,
Is that who that is?
Yes,
Yeah, that's that
he's
guy.
the guy who got the Quinjet for her.
Yeah.
I
He's the guy
kinda
who
like
got the
that.
poster, who we don't know his name, but it's Rick Mason.
I kind of like that. But I don't. That hospital, there are the one doctor we hear is not speaking Russian. That is cold-blooded American doctor happening right there, and I firmly believe that this show forgot takes place in Russia.
Well, I think that scene took place in England.
No, that scene takes place in England. Yeah, because Nick Fury isn't in Russia; he's in England with Falsworth. Yeah,
where Gravik is in Russia.
Yeah, Nick Fury at the end is with the president. That's in England because Falsworth is there.
I don't remember. That's fine. Doesn't matter.
It's honestly not super important.
But what I will say, Brandon, is they don't do a very good job of relaying and keeping track of where characters are.
Yeah.
And like you're right about where Gravik and most of them are is in Russia, and they keep just kind of coming in and out of Russia like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like it is in the same location.
Chernobyl. Chernobog.
I fully chalk up some of these things to like, especially the hospital, like lack of security staff for the president of the United States.
Yeah.
To COVID stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's partially
also
responsible.
Like it's Nick Fury is just like a secret super ninja in that hospital. Like nobody sees him. He's just like taking out dudes like Batman.
I think it's cool that Fury has to use breath to unlock the grave because like you avoid any like duplication of eye or skin or something like that. You can't duplicate his breath. So like that's neat.
Yeah.
That's a neat scroll.
I do like that he has graves all around the world.
I love that too. But that suit up scene is stupid.
He has an iPad.
This idea of like, and
I told you that was going to happen in episode 5. When we talked about episode 1, I said that this show is we're going to have the penultimate episode. He's going to have a suit up scene. He's going to get his eye patch. He's going to get his coat, and that's going to be a suit up scene. And they did it, and I'm so upset. I'm mad. I'm so upset they did it.
Yeah, it's bad. It's stupid. And the thing about it is like I don't mind Nick Fury like that being his like time to get to work. Look, that's whatever. I don't mind that. The problem is that like usually those moments come from like the character making a decision or something has happened to like functionally change their trajectory or something. And to find out especially that he's just doing that to go talk to the president and say Rhodey's a Skrull, just trust me on this. Y'all, I'm so mad.
Yeah, it's not a very good show.
I don't talk about it anymore.
That's fine. I have one more thing I want to say.
Let me just leave England to go meet up with Falsworth, who was also in England, so we can get to my one grave in Finland, so I can grab the goddamn stupid DNA thing and give it to Gaia, I guess, put on my cool outfit, go back to the UK, and tell the president, stop, Rhodey's a Skrull.
I don't understand. Okay, so like, everyone who has a suit up scene like that, like we've got to earn this thing, needs to be given the fake comic that was made after when Gotham was premiered, where it is Jim Gordon receiving the mustache and flying off. Like everyone needs to be given that, and if you are doing that in your penultimate episode, you need to rethink the show.
Yeah, because it's like when that happens in Falcon Winter Soldier, a bad show, but it is the Falcon becoming Captain America.
Yeah,
Nick Fury, it's him getting a new eye patch. They're just not the same.
And he keeps saying he keeps saying, I'm Nick Fury. Even when I'm out, I'm in. I'm the same Nick Fury I always was. And so, like, okay, then why don't you have your eye patch? You don't have your eye patch because they want the suit up scene at the end of the show.
I'm so mad about that's like not something that's explored about his character, because like it's supposed to mean something when Nick Fury lets you see his bad eye.
Yeah.
And like it just doesn't. And like the fact that he decides to then cover it up again, like it also means nothing. And I just want to cry. Who do you think shows up first, Gaia or the lady she's played in Star Wars, Han Solo? Oh, the lady she's playing in Star Wars,
Kira.
Yeah.
Kira shows up first for Gaia.
Kira for sure.
Yeah.
You know why I say that?
Because that interview?
No, because Kate Bishop wasn't a really well received and everybody liked her show, and we have no idea when we're seeing her again. So we're definitely not seeing Emilia Clarke again anytime soon.
Superpowered Gaia Thanos.
Why does he put the eye patch back on if he doesn't need it?
I thought it was gonna come back like he'd have it would be like a solid Snake eye patch where it has tech shit, and nope.
Yeah,
it just, because cool.
Do you remember in Winter Soldier when he's just, you need to keep both eyes open? Like that's all. Yeah. That's a big deal.
That's pretty cool. Yeah,
and like doesn't matter. He's just. I think he can see out of the eye.
Cyber eye.
He's not acting like he's blind with one eye.
Yeah.
The part where the president's like, "Give me a gun," is stupid.
Oh my god, that whole hospital scene is awful.
Yeah.
I hate to like, what does this mean for the wider MCU stuff? But like, because it's garbage. But like, I care about the wider MCU. Yeah. So here's two things that came up in these last episodes I just want to touch on real quick. We learned that there's a full body version of the Widow's Veil. Don't know what that's going to be used for, but we know it exists.
That's the newer model.
That's the face changing technology.
Right.
He and Fallsworth talk about there's a full body version.
Cool.
But more importantly, the president says all not off-worlders are now banned from the planet. Illegal. They need to leave.
Illegal.
What does this mean for Asgardians? Probably nothing. I understand, but I wanted to at least mention it because that's a strong statement when you know the Asgardians are right there. He just says off-worlders.
Yeah.
They're off-worlders.
They're off-dimensioners.
Well, the Asgardians don't live in America, so they can't make them illegal.
Oh, that's true. They're living their way.
Yeah.
That's true. He's not.
But the Skrulls also aren't in America.
I'm sure like 7 of them are.
The show forgets it doesn't take place in America.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes place in Chernobyl. Oh, also, yeah, all the Skrulls, all the humans that got abducted are chilling in Russia for potentially like decades at this point. They would all be dead from that radiation poisoning, unless they are secretly also being kept.
What was the pod moment with all the pod people at the end? It was like when they're just kind of looking at like, look at all these people now.
They have way more than they thought they did.
Yeah,
because I kept This is a criticism of how the scene is shot, not a criticism of the scene itself. But there's multiple times as that scene is shot that they are looking at people, and it looks like they have a revelation of the person they're looking at being revealed to be a Skrull, but they never tell us what that person is. So that's clearly not supposed to be the point.
Yes. So you brought up earlier Gravik's friend who gets stabbed. We see him wake up as the regular human. So there are a couple people that were side characters that we are seeing their human versions for the first time waking up. So there is some like, oh, that person was a Skrull this whole time, blah, blah, blah. Again, the side characters who don't matter whatsoever. But it is to show like, well, they have way more people than we ever expected. Like this was way bigger than we all thought. Again, this is not going to matter to anything in the future.
No, the thing that was Skrulls will make peace off screen.
Yeah.
The thing that was so frustrating about that scene is there were twice where like it was like the camera is like up looking at like Gaia and somebody, and they're looking down and they're like, oh my god, it's shot like it's a reveal of like, oh my god, this person was a Skrull, and that's going to be like that's not the point of the scene, and so it's weirdly shot.
Can I tell you what I think it was before things changed and a certain someone got cast as Thunderbolt Ross? I think it was supposed to be the president. I think you were supposed to learn that Dermot Mulroney was like, you were going to see him on the slab, and the reaction was going to be learning the president is a Skrull. But I think that was like way earlier in a different version of what they were doing in production and all that kind of stuff.
Looking up some behind the scenes stuff, this originally had 2 directors, and right before it started, one of them bounced out. So that could probably have some the one guy, the director, he was only going to direct half the amount of episodes. So like, not that completely changes all the quality, but like him having to take over the whole show might have impacted some of it too.
Marvel needs to start hiring people who've actually worked on TV shows and not one episode of something prior to this.
One episode of like Suits.
And they also need to not let this director talk about this show anymore because like the constant stuff is just like, God, you're so wrong.
Yeah.
I can't believe they cast Shooter McGavin as Tucker Carlson inside of the MCU and only used him for episode 2 and then to shoot him. I'm so like,
I would have loved.
I was so excited about episode 2 because of characters like him showing up as Skrulls.
Yeah. I was hoping he would like show up again. Like we'd see him on the news and like no one knows he's a Skrull. Like that'd be great. But like now he's gone. All the potential.
Priscilla is watching him. Fury is watching him on the news earlier. He doesn't know he's a Skrull at that point. I think it's weird. I'm kind of with Ben. I think I'm done.
Yeah, we was at 1:30. Yeah. It's a bummer, but luckily, again, the next thing that we have is the Marvels, and that looks fantastic, and it has Nick Fury. So, like Ben, we'll just forget this ever happened. And
hey, friends, we live in the past, so probably by the time that you're watching this, we've watched the Marvels, and we've told you what we thought about it, but no, we didn't, because that's not out yet, because this is all coming out in order. So look out for our Marvels review, where hopefully we liked it more, even though it probably had nothing to do with this.
Time is a lake.
Is the MCU in trouble forever?
No.
Maybe. Who knows?
Forever.
I think they can. I don't know. The wound is too fresh for me to even speculate.
Word. I feel you.
We'll see. I hope they can pull these TV shows together, but I'm not hopeful right now.
Honestly, I'm not worried about the quality of Loki. I'm only worried about how much is Jonathan Majors in that show.
I'm a little worried about the quality of Loki, either founded or unfounded, because the entire creative team that with the first season didn't come back for the second season.
Oh, sure. Well, that is a bummer.
So there's kind of me going like, I don't know. I'm still excited because I like Loki and I like the first season, so I'm sure there's something there. But
sure,
I can't say I'm not worried. Is what I'm trying to get at.
I get you.
Okay. That it?
That's it. That's the postmortem. Let's wrap this carcass up and bury it.
So that'll do it, guys. That's Secret Invasion.
And
it's done.
Not bury this. Sorry, go ahead.
Mercifully done is Secret Invasion. Fake Nerds Watch will continue on with Star Trek Strange New Worlds for at least a couple more weeks. But by the time you're watching this, it doesn't matter.
Someone get to Mike Mottola and tell him to skip this one.
Oh my God! Quickly, someone text Mike.
It's really funny. He's gonna watch it and say, "Y'all, this one's a hit. Love this one. Watch because that's the trajectory."
I would listen to Mike tell me why.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I believe every word. Yeah,
he's done it before.
It's true.
All right, so that's Secret Invasion, guys. Once again, this is coming out far later than we've recorded it because of the strikes. So make sure to check out the website to find out what is impacted by the strikes and what is still going. Of course, I'm sure you've been watching some of our stuff in the interim, but happy to have you guys back if you're watching this now. But you can check us out at fakenerdpodcast.com. We have a TeePublic and a Patreon, which you can find linked below or on our website, fakenerdpodcast.com. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Fake Nerd Podcast. I will never call it X.
No,
never. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Fake Nerd Podcast. fakenerdguys@gmail.com. I'm at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter.
You know what's funny? Because like this is in the future.
Watch it
when
be
we
Twitter.
Record, it'll still be Twitter.
Watch that.
It'll be Twitter again. Like, the people will be like, "Oh yeah, that happened."
I'm
at BT the X times, friends.
I'm at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter, and you can also find me writing for CBR.com, AtomicGeekdom.com, and KaijuRamenMedia.com. Ben?
You can find me on the internet at BenMagnet27, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads. And you can also find me writing for Fusion Gaming Magazine, Old School Gamer Magazine, GoNintendo.com, and playing Mary Frankenstein in D and Dark.
Ryan?
You could find me recommending the 2022 comic written by Ryan North, Secret Invasion, if you want a great small-scale Skrull story, at DJ Tony Snark 616.
Sparkz.
You can find me genuinely thrilled to be on the journey and path of recovery that is engaging with everything that is not this show with these fellas at Sparkz Witty on Instagram, Twitter, SPARKZ Witty.
Like this video, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to the podcatcher of choice if you listen to the audio format, and until next time you see us, guys, Stay fake, nerds.
Who can you trust?